Hello, and welcome to a new show that I, Horatius the Dwarf, am bringing to fruition. This is Can You Dwarf It? A show that answers the almighty question of is this game or piece of media dwarf enough? So if you think you'd enjoy this and more episodes of this show in the future, your voice being shared in the comments section down below, or simply by liking the video and subbing to the channel would mean a ton. I have been streaming over on my Twitch for about 3.5 years now. I think it's time to create something new, and this series is an exciting new venture. So let's talk about what it means to be dwarf-like. We have three major criteria for what makes a game dwarf. I understand that how any of us perceive these in a title will shift, and yes, it's all very subjective. These three criteria that we'll be talking about today are physical, spiritual, and cultural. I would say that while I will be covering these in particular order, they are by no means more important than each other. Furthermore, I want to point out that there are many different ways for a game or other piece of media to be dwarf-like. If a game is very dwarf in one way, it may still be very dwarf in others. After we go over these criteria, we will then begin the process of setting a score or result for just how dwarf the episode's topic is. So, starting off with the physical. In some ways, this criteria will be the easiest to discern, for what looks dwarf is quite easy to spot, even for those less aware or uninitiated. We're talking about Tolkien dwarf, Warhammer dwarf, esoteric TTRPG iterations, or even folklore roots. Any manner of dwarf is welcome and recognized here. I have my own biases on what the ideal dwarf looks like. It's me. But you can all figure out what that is in time. For spiritual, the main question is, did the development team want it to feel dwarf-like? What kind of dwarf is in its soul? How does the gameplay loop or the experience of the creations in the game make you feel, and is that feeling dwarven? If, after watching it or playing it, does it make you feel like a rabble-rousing and getting your kin together for a party? Does it make you pine for the warmth of a hearth and a stiff drink nearby, or a pipe to smoke, or stories to pull from your core and share with the folk that you keep in your life? Does it make you feel like a dwarf? And does it reward you in gameplay by acting like it? Lastly, we have the cultural criteria, where I will use the previous two criteria to answer the big question. Does the culture of this game have dwarf in its belly? How does the fan base act? Do they have a strong sense of kinship? Also, we'll look into how the piece of media is viewed from the outside. If people hear you have played or have watched this, will they know that you're one step closer to growing a big bushy beard and developing your smithing skills? Does the game have a dwarven vibe to it? Is it dwarfcore? How is it perceived outside of its community? What memes are there about it? Has this topic influenced internet dwarf culture? So now that I've laid out the rules and the criteria by which we will be judging... Oh, wait, hold on. I just realized we haven't even introduced the topic of the series, or at least of this episode. I won't pretend that you haven't read the title, or even you haven't seen the thumbnail. I'm sure you're wise enough to figure out what we're talking about today as one of the most dwarf games in modern history, and maybe even of all time. It is my honor to introduce Deep Rock Galactic. Deep Rock Galactic may need no proper introduction to some, but let's welcome the Greenbeards. That's dwarf for neophyte. And explain what the wonderful game is. Deep Rock Galactic is a co-op first-person shooter developed by Ghost Ship Games and published by Coffee Stain. Its focus is that of the player being a dwarven miner in the illustrious company of the title's namesake, Deep Rock Galactic. Your job is to go into the purchased planet of Huxley's 4 and strip it for everything it's worth, and bring the materials to the space rig, which serves as not only your hub but also your lobby between missions. Just watch out for the locals. They're bugs, and they're not a fan of the ruckus that you make, and have found dwarf flesh to be quite tasty. But Horatius, you've already said it's the most dwarf game ever, so why are we even talking about it? I hear you cry from your pits of arrogance and plighting holes. There are a few reasons why I'm talking about Deep Rock Galactic, not just today, but also for the first episode of the series. Firstly, it is because the new season of DRG, that's Deep Rock Galactic, just dropped a ton of cool new content, and Mama Algorithm, well, she loves a bunch of folks talking about the same thing at the same time at once on her platform. So, secondly, I wanted to showcase a very measurable and dwarf game for the first run of this show. So I'd be talking about a topic that not only do I know a lot about, but it would also be easier for me to write this script that I'm sure won't be more than 20 pages. And lastly, I just love this dang game. I'll be honest with you guys. DRG is a game that I have sunk so many days into and have built so many friendships and memories with. It's a brilliant game, and heck, I just want to gush about it. I just want to tell you why I love this game and why it's one of the most dwarven games I've ever played. So without any more pretense or setup, let's answer the question. Deep Rock Galactic, can you dwarf it? We start with the criteria of physical. How dwarf does this game appear to be? Well, let me just check my notes. Yes, this game is super dwarf looking. I mean, have you seen the beards, the weapons, the armor? Have you seen that they even have a pickaxe customization kiosk? This game, from a player's avatar standpoint, is about as dwarf as you can get. You play as a dwarf, check. You have a pickaxe and go mining, check. You fight the horrors that block your egress, and then you go home and have an ale with your team, or just at the local barkeep, check. Oh, there's a bar in the lobby, by the way, where you can dance, play games, and even contemplate the meaning of this listless existence, watching the cosmos unfeeling in its cold embrace as it patiently awaits the decay of all that we have built, just to reclaim us all and wrap us in its endless layers of the void. But until then, it's go to the crust of Hoxie's 4, get the goods, and get out. This game is top to bottom, dwarf-coded, and nails the look. You are a dwarf in this game. Certainly look like one. Welcome to the spiritual criteria, where we'll dive into the soul of this topic and find out if what we find there is fit for smithing or not. Deep Rock Galactic's dev team has streamed their game regularly, and in nearly every stream they talk about how much they love the dwarves of their product and how they make strives to make this the most dwarf game on the market. The team behind this game makes choices that consistently make the game more and more of a dwarf gamer's paradise. The gameplay loops of Deep Rock Galactic are fundamentally iconic of dwarfhood. You go and you mine in a cave. This sounds, oh my goodness, the sound design in this game is brilliant. In times of calm, the music is chill and lets you listen to the rustic charm of slamming your pickaxe into rock, stone, and anything else in your way to the minerals you desire. The way the minerals flop onto the ground gives me a gleeful smile, and I cherish the chance to run through and snatch up the remains of previous hauls. The visuals teach and guide greenbeards and warn and remind graybeards alike. The game rewards you for being a dwarf in every single way. You have incentives to save your teammates and work faster on most tasks when it's done with an ally. The 4 classes you play all have their own quirks and tools that further encourage them to establish helpful means to navigating the caves. Scouts with their lights, engineers with their platforms, gunners with their zip lines and shield domes, and drillers who carve tunnels wide enough to defend and make escapes through. Deep Rock Galactic has the soul of a dwarf. It's the Souls-like of dwarf-like. Lastly, we'll finish with the cultural. This section will build off of the arguments of the previous 2 criteria to address if this game has culture of dwarves in its bones. We have talked about how Deep Rock Galactic walks the walk and talks the talk of being a dwarf, but how does the world outside of itself perceive it? Deep Rock Galactic is one of the most widely beloved indie darlings of recent gaming history, and it is heralded widely as one of the most dwarf games out there. If you have a friend, and they kinda like dwarves, you can guess that they either know or already own Deep Rock Galactic. The gaming space outside of it is known for the mighty cry of rock and stone, as a call to arms for anyone around who knows the game and has plunged the depths of Hox's 4. This game is an entry point for many gamers to discover the rest of the dwarf gaming pantheon, of which we will talk about more in future episodes. There is something I've been hinting at in this video, but we'll now talk more explicitly. It's the V key. This button, by default, will have your dwarf raise their pickaxe and yell rock and stone, or some form of that, and your outline flares up for other characters to see. This V key does so much more, and there's even entire videos about what it does culturally. So I won't expand on it too much here. You should check those videos out. Even before we had voice chat in Deep Rock Galactic, the V key was the most consistent and fastest way for players to interact with each other in the game world. Sure, there's always been text chat, but it's so much easier to just rock and stone your communication troubles away. This, coupled with the devs' actions, has enshrined one simple concept into the game's growing community. We are a team. Stand united, always. It's a powerful notion, and it's why even with many, many hours in the game, I have had less than 5 instances of people being anything less than fantastic comrades in the minds of Hox's 4. I think we can all take an educated guess on my thoughts on this majestic title. It is one of the most dwarven games that I know, and will continue to play it for many upcoming years to be sure. I will give today's topic, Deep Rock Galactic, a legendary ranking of Gilded Graybeard. As you can tell, the points don't matter, just like in real life. So go play this game, and you'll be glad you did, and tell him Horatius sent you. So, in Deep Rock Galactic, can you dwarf it? Yeah, I'd say that you can. Well, this is it. This is the end of the first Can You Dwarf It? And I gotta say, thanks for watching, and I hope you felt something. I stream on Twitch, links below. Thank you to my editor, Ramothic, for the fantastic job. Thank you to my wife for helping construct and proofread my script. And thank you all. I would have made this even if you didn't watch, but I'm glad to share this with you. I do hope you enjoyed yourselves. Please click the bell and sub and like and all everything else below. Have a great rest of your day, and remember, rock and stone to the bone.